Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst EMMANUEL Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Adesua. Let's start with these day newspapers. We had the lead story. Despite Buhari's apparent qualification to run in 2019, PDP heads to court. Yes, the affidavit in place of certificates, which the incumbent president has submitted to INEC. And the dust is up there again about President Buhari's certificate, whether it is available, whether it is in custody or not. And I think you talk so much about this, the constitutional requirements to contest as a president. 40 years old, you must be a Nigerian citizen.
You must be, at least 35 years old.
Yes. Then, of course, education up to school certificate level or its equivalent. I wonder why the consumer used the word school certificate level. Certificate, underline.
It does not talk about possession of a school certificate.
School certificate level without a certificate.
Well, it says in the interpretation of what is meant in section 131 subsection D, in section 318, what is meant by the equivalent is explained. You can have city and guilds. You may have just attended secondary school and not finished. You may have attended some courses. You may have the ability to speak English, communicate in English, and understand English. You may have been involved in the private sector or in the public sector for 10 years. If INEC deems all of this acceptable, then you are good to go. Okay. And in a court of appeal case, as Kauri Ajulo Esquire pointed out in an article, Bayo and Njida, the court of appeal had ruled that all of this is to be read together conjunctively. So if you satisfy just that definition under section 131D for the president, there are other provisions for governor, for members of House of Assembly and all of that in the Constitution, right? Then you are good to go. If you look at that criteria, then you will say that, well, President Buhari is qualified to run.
Yes.
And that is why I think this day, in their headline, said, despite apparent qualification. Yes, but it will be good for the PDP to go to court and test the matter and get a proper interpretation.
Because if you...
But I think nothing will happen.
Yes, but if you, as the candidate, is alluding to a certificate, and you are not producing that certificate...
Yeah, law is not morality. We can't moralize. Because you are talking about sentiments now.
No, it's not sentiment. You are the ones. You could have said, well, I attended Baroa College.
We have not seen the details of that affidavit and the claims made in the said affidavit. So we cannot judge on the basis of what people are just saying. But if anybody has seen what the affidavit states categorically, then that's a different issue.
Well, that issue will continue to be in the front burner for some time. And I think it is in the interest of the opposition party to also keep it...
But I made a point earlier before you came. Yes. I said maybe it's because of all of this that, the Emir of Kano, His Royal Majesty Lamido Sanusi, made the point that, look, we should even raise the level of qualification for public office.
That is another debate altogether.
Look, and, some people even say, if you don't have the minimum of a degree that can be traced and that, can be confirmed, then don't even bother to run for any office in Nigeria.
It's an issue for seminar discussion. Because to make this law, to pass through the National Assembly, and the caliber of people who are sitting there. Now, there is another story in the front page of This Day. Why Atiku selected Obi as running mate. The issue of others who were in the running, but according to this story, the reason why Atiku picked Peter Obi is that he was one of the first persons to throw his weight behind his candidacy without asking for anything. I think it is a lesson. Whereas others were already angling for a position. And at the same time, they were hobnobbing with other aspirants. So the commitment of Obi to the Atiku project, apart from other criteria that stand him out of the crowd, that's why he was picked.
So this is a reward for loyalty?
No, loyalty.
And
he wasn't asking, yes, selflessness. I think that is the word, selflessness. He wasn't asking for anything when he committed to the Atiku project. And of course, we all agree that he is a good choice. So let's look at...
But other people are asking for things.
Yes.
You know, even in the Southwest, the group, the Southwest PDP is asking for Chief of Staff, SGF, you know, Attorney General of the Federation. And I read all of that, and I said,
did they ask for First Lady? No, but you know, that position is up for grabs in the Atiku family domain. There are a number of candidates.
How do you And I said, look, I mean, they should go to the election first and win before you begin to share this. This is like counting once
chicken before the...
Yes, you know.
No, but that's politics for you. You guess what? You have to also stake your claim before it's victory day.
And maybe the reason Vice President Atiku chose Peter Obi, maybe he was the only person who did not insist that he must do only one term. Because, you know, there was also a front page story in This Day yesterday where it was indicated that one of the demands was that, well, he would do one term if he wins so that, you know, the Southeast can take the presidency in 2023.
Yes.
And I'm sure the former vice president will have learned from other experiences that it's not safe to make such a promise.
Well, as in the past, we know that promises are meant to be broken.
They're made by men.
Meant to be broken.
Oh, really?
I mean,
you have a sexist interpretation of it?
No, I'm just saying, promises are made by men. Men make the promises and then they break it. It's just inevitable.
Okay.
They're not cast in stone.
No, I think human beings generally, not men.
Okay.
He's using
human beings generally.
men as a common gender.
Okay.
Now, Vanguard newspaper, anxiety grips APC governors as National Working Committee meets. Ondo, Zamfara, Ogun, Imo remain hotbeds of crisis.
What paper is that?
Vanguard newspaper, the Vanguard newspaper. Now, the APC crisis is not about to go away soon, with these governors staking their claims. And the party is also looking at options to pacify some of these aggrieved governors or to cut them to size. In the case of Ondo, the story is saying that one of the ways they are trying to cut him to size is to ensure that those going to the House of Assembly, his supporters don't get more than 1/4 of that. Perhaps that way they can put him in check. And of course, the case of Zamfara, where the governor, Yari, and the senator, Marafa, they are still at one another's throats as to who bungled the Congress in the state. Of course, they are in court trying to see how they can get their candidates on the electoral ballot paper. But for now, INEC says there's no way for APC.
The president is again meeting with these aggrieved governors. Let's hope that the president will be able to use his position, both as president and as a statesman, to be able to make peace among the warring factions. Otherwise, he himself will be affected, and the party will be affected, because these governors, the National Working Committee of the party may have become more powerful under the watch of Adams Oshiomhole. But you know, of course, that it is these governors that are on the ground. And we have seen cases in the past where, you know, the party lost power at the center, in part because, you know, the internal democracy that, you know, the leadership was preaching was not operationalized in terms of how the primaries were conducted, and the party paid dearly for it later on. So we'll see how it goes, because some of the governors have more or less been threatening to do anti-party, to engage in anti-party activities during the election.
Just moving their structures to work for other
Yes, or they move to another party and they divide the votes of their own constituency, and that way, you know, the party will lose the ball.
And this should really be a source of concern for the ruling party. Remember, just last week, the Economy Intelligence magazine said that when it was forecasting the opposition party to win the election in 2019, said that the internal democracy problem they have in this faction will continue to be a bother for them, and they will focus so much on this and lose the main goal here, which is to return the president in 2019.
The crisis is becoming a factor in the chances of the ruling party. And unless they can put their acts together, it will continue to be a factor up till February when that election will take place. Now, above the masthead of Vanguard, there is a story. Minimum wage. Labour holds nationwide protest tomorrow. The minimum wage saga.
Is it tomorrow or November 6th?
No,
Did they change the date?
No, there is a nationwide protest.
Oh, protest, okay.
Just to...
Before the strike
Before the strike itself. So that protest will take place in all major cities of the country tomorrow to highlight the fact that Labour is serious about getting something substantial. Because if you look at all
Labour is asking for 30,000.
Yes, if you look at...
clear about what they want.
If you look at all the figures even being quoted, in today's market, in today's inflationary rates, you wouldn't say...
You go to the market?
We provide money for those who go to the market, and we get feedback.
You get feedback.
As responsible husbands.
And you get fed, not just feedback. Great.
Yes.
Great.
So I think the earlier they go back to the negotiation table, because I also believe that that 30,000 is not cast in stone. I
thought there was a meeting for today. The Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, did say that they're supposed to meet today. Well, is Labour part of that meeting? Good question. If you are meeting without Labour, then it means you'll be deciding on what you want to do without Labour. Let's look at the Punch newspaper.
Okay, quickly, so that we take one or two international stories.
Okay, the lead story in the Punch, APC senators, reps, attack party, say we are not better than PDP. Things have not changed. Many things are worse, and the people are bitter. We should not assume that we can win even with massive rigging. That's Senator Ibrahim, from former Yobe State governor, three-time governor of Yobe State governor, launching his book at his 70th birthday, and he made a candid assessment of his own party, saying that, look, in the zone where he comes from, the party is not likely to win, even with massive rigging. He said because most of the things they promised, some situations have degenerated. They have not kept to their promises. And that's coming from a party man to the core. He has always been in one party, has not moved all this while. So I think his own party should take him very seriously and see how they can amend. Let's look at the UK papers, where the Guardian newspaper and the Times have similar headlines. The Guardian, Hammond budget to give £2 billion extra for mental health services. And the Times UK puts it this way: all schools and A&Es get mental health units. So every school and hospital casualty unit in Britain will have its own dedicated mental health team in a £2 billion funding to tackle the epidemic of eating disorders, depression, and self-harm among young people. So,
well, that's commendable.
Yes.
And I hope that Nigeria, where mental health care is a major crisis, we don't even have enough psychiatrists. Yes. We don't have enough,
hospitals?
Yes, and you see in the example of the UK, the government moving from just reacting to taking proactive action to ensure that the population of people who fall into depression or who have mental health challenges, are taken care of, even at the schools level. But here in Nigeria, there's still this superstitious attitude towards mental health. If you are depressed, people will say, oh, you're suffering from home trouble, whatever that means, So there are lessons that we can also learn from some of these developments in other jurisdictions, which we should point out for the benefit of Nigerian policymakers.
Yeah, the Daily Mail and Daily Mirror, of course, the tragedy at Leicester stadium where the owner of Leicester Football Club, Leicester City Football Club, died in that helicopter crash. But the way they are looking at it is the heroics of the pilots. It could have, that plane could have killed hundreds, but the pilot aimed the copter away from the crowd, you know, so that it did not crash in the parking lot.
Yeah, actually, the pilot and his partner, the lady, you know, they were both described as very accomplished pilots with many years of experience. In fact, the lady is even an award-winning, you know, pilot. But it's a really sad thing.
Sad thing.
Yeah.
So the Daily Mail and Daily Mirror celebrating the heroics because it could have been worse if that had crashed into
the stadium,
where you still had a lot of football fans into the neighborhood. So it's a way of, it's a big tragedy, but again, there are always heroics in matters like this, and that's what the Daily Mail is pointing out. Wall Street Journal, grieving Pittsburgh mourn victims. The ambush that killed 11 people and injured 6, where the 43-year-old Robert Bauer ambushed that synagogue. Of course, the worst such in American history, anti-Semitic attack, the worst anti-Semitic attack in American history. And they're also pointing at the fact that there have been a lot of online postings anti-Semitic, apart from him and others. This is the outcome we're seeing, and I think the society, especially in America, will also need to check these hate postings before they degenerate into this kind of a tragedy. Where a lone gunman had gone to that Tree of Life synagogue to ambush a lot of people. Yes. And of course, other synagogues are on high alert and being provided with security.
So much hate in the world.
Yes.
You know, but
hatred,
still, it's not justifiable on any grounds whatsoever.
It's not. We need love. We need peace. We need harmony in the world.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel Efeni. We won't be able to take more stories. Thank you. So we'll see you again tomorrow morning.
Many thanks. It's now time for a short break.